Hello, I'm Lauren, and welcome to Improving the World. I'm an international improviser based in Hong Kong, and I speak to amazing improv women all over the world. Today being no different, I am talking to Kelly Agathos. She is in Brussels, and we are talking about space within improv. So how you can make sure that you are making space for others. This one is, I think, an apt chat for always. P.S. Have you subscribed yet to Improving the World? It would be greatly appreciated if you would. And now, off to Kelly. I hope that you enjoy. You are an improviser, founder of Improv Bubble there in Belgium. You have a school, you do corporate work, weekly professional improv shows in English.
It's wonderful because 1/3 of the city are internationals because it's the capital of the EU. So a lot of people who live in Brussels are actually not Belgian. The Anglophone community is quite large.
Nice. Today we're talking about this idea of space, haha, and also more specifically of the give and take of space. I'm going to go left of center and then we'll come back. Talk to me first about in-depth character work. And I want to know what you think about this journey of in-depth character creation, the gratification one gets from a juicy character.
It's actually something that's been on my mind quite a lot lately. I just finished binge watching Casa del Papel, or Money Heist in English. I love that series so much because it's got so many different characters. Getting to know them, knowing what their motivations are and what their past history is, even though there's a huge cast. We're talking about 8 to 10 people that get the spotlight. You can actually give so much time and space to really get to know each character, to get to love them, and to get to be emotionally invested in whether they succeed or fail. So character driven rather than very plot based. I found that so enjoyable. It got me thinking about character and improv. I come from more of a Keith Johnson background where we really drill story. In Don't Close is more about organically getting to the story rather than thinking of the story first on. How wonderful it is to actually focus more on the characters and allow the story to evolve based on them. It will also make your story less predictable. With my team, we're doing radio plays now that we can't actually meet in person. Since you can't see the other person and you can't rely on facial cues, you need to talk and express yourself, explain what's going on in your character's inner world to give more of yourself. You're sharing stories about your character's past, expressing how it is that what the other person said has affected you.
Interesting how you're talking about the growth of the character and how the character's actions are influencing the next rather than the narrative. In that, in an improv space, this is very much about the interplay of the players and therefore the characters. Talk to me therefore about being self-aware enough, hearing people and what they need and where you're going.
I think you've probably heard the saying, it's better to be interested rather than interesting. Someone who goes on stage and makes it all about themselves, it's not even malicious most of the time. It comes out of fear, stress, wanting to entertain the audience. Where they're working from is a place of trying to be interesting. Look at me, everything okay? Are you guys laughing? Okay, well, that's kind of the thought process. Whereas if you are in character development mode and being endowed or endowing, that's something that takes a little more time. What I often see is people getting up on stage and in the first or second scene, we're already into plot. The plot monster has come out and we're already like, okay, there's a son and he wants to grow up and become a king. Oh, and now he's going to go on a quest. Boom. If you give yourselves the space to listen to each other, get to know each other in those first few scenes and vice versa, listen to the cues your partner is giving, you endow them as well, you help them out. There's what you give yourself and there's what you receive. And I think that both are vitally important. I don't think you should be doing all the work. It's a little bit of give and take. That's a really nice starting point. If you're someone who is very high energy and when you don't hear laughter, you get nervous, then there might be a temptation to jump in either by editing or moving the story forward. What is needed in that moment is just space and time so that you can listen and you can be listened to. And it's like foundation. The work you do on exposition is what's going to serve you well anyway, no matter what kind of improv you're doing, no matter what story you're telling. If you've got rocky foundations, you're going to have to work so much harder to figure out what your story is, where you're going. It's a combination of curiosity for the other person, for the scene that is happening, but curiosity, not stress. And you're in a place of being on your toes, But at the same time, you're a little bit relaxed. You need to be switched on with your partner or partners, but you also need to not let your brain go into overdrive of must make something happen now. If you do that, you're never going to get into the in-depth character work.
Okay, you're being conscious of what's going on, but I heard you talk a lot about managing the self and excitement and nervousness. How do we make sure that we're on the side, we're watching, or we're in the background, or whatever it is? We are practicing patience, but we're also being ready to help and making sure that we're not being overly patient and not jumping in at the right time. And also on the flip side of that, how do you know that you're jumping up out of nervousness versus excitement that's appropriate?
A lot of it is practice, doing it again and again and again, and recognizing the signals that you're getting. Very often I do these exercises with my students. We practice coming in. We don't even finish a scene. We just practice coming in. We get the people on stage to give feedback to the people coming in about whether they were too early, too late, or right on time. Getting there is a matter of practice and observation. It's also about your attitude, your headspace in the sidelines. If in the sidelines you are still present, which means you are with them, watching what's going on, looking for the facial cues, and listening to how the story evolves, then you will know what to do, whether it's time for you to give a sound support from the outside or edit the scene because it's time to move on. If you're sitting there back, leaning against the wall, or sitting down in a spectator mode rather than active improviser mode, or even worse, if you're sitting there thinking about what am I going to do when it's my turn to go on stage, what is the story, where does the story need to go next, then you're going to miss things that are being said, and you might miss if they're in trouble. The kind of focus that I experience when I'm either on or off stage is the closest thing I know to meditation. I'm not thinking about what the public thinks. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to eat later. I'm striving to truly be present.
Yeah. We're talking about giving and taking a space, and you're mentioning this exercise, practicing just coming in and coming on. You are talking about when it is appropriate to come on. If you're timing it correctly, you are not taking someone's space. You are coming on to contribute, to make them look better, and to support the scene work. So if I'm coming on too early, what that is about me taking space of the person who is there, who is already contributing, and we're working out a character or something or story. Or if I'm coming in too late, then I was lacking some support and I was almost giving too much space. There's a bit of a flip requirement from the person on stage. You said if a person on stage is struggling, they're signaling it. There's a discussion there about how loud your signals are and whether they're literally verbal, go like, I wish my sister would get here already. Signaling and clarifying with people in that dance so that you are coming at the right time to not like steal someone's thunder. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting things in there. First of all, I think you can take someone's space even if you're not on the outskirts coming in. I think you can take someone's space even if you're in the same scene with them. Talking over someone, making the scene all about you, or you are impatient in the moment where you're on stage with someone else or other people, then you're not being a supportive partner because you're taking space. You're being interesting rather than interested. Often it's also a lack of self-awareness. It's a lack of realization that that's what you're doing. It comes from a place of stress, wanting to make something happen. This comes with time and practice and good feedback. If you're interested in your partners and what the relationship between both of you is, because at the end, it all comes down to how do I feel about you? How do you feel about me? That's when the audience cares. They don't care when you're talking about a third person or about what you're planning to do later on, which is another trap we get into when we get nervous, rather than what's going on here. If you're able to do that, then you're able to be vulnerable. You're able to be truly connected with your partner, and they'll do the same for you. You will be in it together. It will click. You will feel that it feels right. I don't always think it's a bad thing to come in early. I actually teach that I'd rather you cut a scene early rather than too late. A scene can always come back. If something was not said or not done and there's more to explore there, you can always bring a scene back. It's very hard though to rescue a scene where the energy has completely left, deflated like a balloon. When you're on the sidelines, I'm sure you've seen this, your body knows before your head knows when it's a good time to go in. You'll see them go like this.
Yeah.
Oh, I should go in, but what am I going to go in with? Your body knows it's the right time to go in. Can you be brave enough, even though you don't know what comes next, to step on stage and trust that it will come, that whatever you bring will be good enough. Keeping the energy high is also important. Keeping the flow is important. You're not going to be alone. Other people will help you out. It's a matter of trusting yourself and trusting each other. You are needed. Whatever happens will be the right thing to happen. And when it comes from that place, usually something organically evolves. If you are just bored on the sidelines and you just cut something to take space, then obviously you're not being a good partner, you're not being a good listener. Unfortunately, gender lines, sometimes I see that women tend to get cut off and given less space when they're in a scene. If they hesitate too much on the side, they'll get fewer opportunities to come in. I just want to make clear that I'm not blaming one side or another. It's a responsibility on both sides, but it's also important to notice this. If the girls are getting as much attention and time as the guys, and it doesn't just go along gender lines. Sometimes you've got more introvert people or people that need a little more time because they tend to not come in all guns blazing bombastic. Trust that they will get there. Give them the space to come and contribute. They also have to get in, but it's important to be aware of it in the first place so that together you can involve everyone, because improv is a collaborative art form. It's not one person or two people and then the rest are the chorus. It is whatever the inspiration takes you to. You've got the same people jumping in. It's not very collaborative anymore. It's the front man and the backing singers.
Yeah. By the way, so glad you said the word bombastic. I have not heard that in a long time. I am awash with joy for the bombastic throwdown. Thank you for that.
Anytime. I love dictionary words.
Well, all the words are in the dictionary, so you must love all words.
I love all words. I mean, thesaurus words. That's what I meant.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is there's ownership to be had by those waiting as well as those on stage, and that one might even say an equal part ownership for everybody. So whether or not you're in active play or if you're in a sideline space, that you are part of everything that's going on, listening or knowing when to come in, when to support. But I'm also hearing you talk about being cut off, whether or not it's someone on stage with you or someone coming in, recognize that. Whether or not you're going to verbally call it out in a scene, I heard you talk a little bit about gender, and there's not just ownership by one person or the other. Say what it is that you need, shared ownership. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Yeah, completely. I teach a workshop called You Are Always On. It's really that idea that you have responsibility for what goes on the stage, no matter where you are. If you're on stage, if you're off stage, if you're talking, if you're not talking, if you're sitting in the corner stirring a cup of tea, the responsibility is always shared. Now, about the thing you said that I found very interesting, how do you verbalize it? How do you call it out? I'm a big believer in feedback. You have to find whatever feedback works for you, whether it's right after you get off stage, whether it's at your next rehearsal. I don't care when it happens, it has to happen. Yeah. If it doesn't happen, you will never be able to change things. You need to get feedback for yourself as well as give feedback to other people. It's always a hard thing, no matter how much we work on it, because no one means badly. If they do, they're not going to last a very long time. If people are actually being assholes, they'll eventually get kicked out of a group. Most of the time, it's about a self-awareness that we didn't have in the moment, because the truth is that we will miss things. We're human beings. So even if we want to be focused on everything, something will slip. And that's okay. It's part of the beauty of improv. Part of what creates the delightful mistakes that take us places that we wouldn't have otherwise gone. The fact that we're not in each other's heads. But being able to talk about it is so important. So that's one thing. Off stage, I'm a big fan of calling things out in character on stage too, because if you've noticed it, chances are other people in the audience might have noticed it too. They will be happy that it's not being ignored. I've said in character so many times, let me finish. Usually to men, or I wasn't done, or something along the lines to make them understand in character, you are interrupting me. You need to listen now. Stop talking. And I think that this goes for anything. If you feel lost, if you're like, I feel so lost right now, verbalizing it, having the courage to say what you truly feel as an improviser and a character is a beautiful thing, because another beauty of our art form is that we can do that. A scripted show can't say what the inner psychology of the actor or actress is. We have that ability to bring people in and out of the fourth wall, notice what's going on two layers, the character and the story layer, but also the improviser's layer, merge the two. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be, and the more you'll be able you'll recognize that I'm going to say something now, or I'm going to say something after.
And I think that there's a really big piece here, especially for people when they're starting, which is about negating. We want to make sure that we're not either negating with the stepping on or negating with the saying, don't step on me. And there can be a fear when you start learning yes and to then worry about saying no, but there's an appropriate way to say no. What's really important here as well to maybe talk about is this idea of chaos. Being on the side, being on stage, being stepped on with the audience, being ready and getting on, but managing your excitement, but getting on, but don't be nervous, but come on, but listen to the other people. Oh, waha. So I didn't even mention the 10 other things that are going on in your psyche and your judgment and the other people and what are they thinking and was it funny and did I say yes and did I hear them? Did I remember the thing and the story and the plot line and oh my gosh, and the scene, where's the table that I built, the imaginary table. So how do you navigate that to make sure that you are giving time and space for character growth, story progression, kind and active supportive play, also making sure that we go forward in a way that is not just chaotic emotional bloodshed?
Yeah, the eternal question. First of all, you're not always going to be able to do that. I don't remember who told me this. I think it was Joe, but I'm not sure. What does a good and a bad show have in common? They're both over.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, do I get to guess?
Yeah, the other beauty of our art form is that it's ephemeral. There's another word for you. It's there only in the moment and only in that one time you play it. Therefore, don't get too cocky because just because you did one great show one day doesn't mean the next one will be. And don't get too sad because just because you did one bad show yesterday doesn't mean that your next one will be. And the only way you'll get to a space where you will be able to balance all that is, again, practice, 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 feedback, feedback, feedback. Another big component for me, we say this all the time, but do we really hear it, is listening. If you're listening, if you're oh
sorry, I'm a fucking comedian. I'm so sorry. That was so rude. So sorry.
Oh man, it's good. We need to laugh right now. If you are interested rather than interesting, you're already in a place that you can hear. If that's your number one focus, then it's less likely that you'll forget plot, character, where we go next. But also, like you said, there's a lot going on. And also, not just for us, the audience has to take in a lot of information we're throwing at them. Pauses, take time. You must know this as well as a communication coach. I also teach communications, and people often talk very fast, or they feel like they need to fill in the silences. You don't need to fill in the silences. Let people sit with something. Watch them emotionally react to something. Listening and taking your time and not being afraid of pauses. Don't mistake the fact that the audience is concentrated with them being bored. Get comfortable with not hearing laughter, with not hearing a peep coming out of them, because that just means that they're concentrating. They're in it with you. If you really focus on listening and take your time and you're not afraid of pauses, it's a lot more likely that you're not going to go to crazy town because you're not going to be adding too many elements out of stress. Something needs to happen, blah, 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 blah. You'll be able to tie up loose ends, figure out where your ending is. Now, having said that, I talked a lot about support and characters and all of that. We want to be somewhere in the middle between fleshing out characters and being story focused. Sometimes some characters in this given story will end up becoming more important than other characters. It doesn't mean that the secondary characters won't have their moment, but it means that if you've got a half hour or 40 minutes or an hour, maybe not everyone is going to get their moment in the spotlight. You need to be okay with that. I did a show where one character didn't get their moment in the spotlight. Instead of the ending, we had to go on this huge other tangent that brought us to an anticlimax where our ending was a lot less satisfying than what it could have been. An element of accepting that today you were supportive in staying out.
I like a lot of the things you said. I want to pick out a couple of them here. Let's just hang them up for a second. Look at them. Pauses. It's really important for us to also talk about the time warp that happens between the stage and off stage, and how the seconds that pass in reality are not what it feels like in stage time. It's like dog years versus actual human years or something, or maybe dog years are real and we're living in slow speed. I don't know. There is a true difference. We're in a time bubble in a stage and performance space, and it feels like forever. This pause feels so awkward sometimes. And for the audience, it was a second. This second for you, which feels unearthly, is for them just a sec. And another thing you said within that context, giving them time to absorb, and that their attention is not necessarily disinterest. The quiet and the therefore a lack of laughter maybe in a comedic space, in a comedic show, doesn't mean that they're disengaged. It means that they're absorbing and that there's a lot going on and they're paying attention. So quiet does not equate disengagement.
No, exactly.
The third thing I want to pick up and wave and have us look at that you said was interplay of time and growth, being able to recognize when a character doesn't need to have a light shone on it because it was a supportive character. And if you have 3 people playing in a show, they don't all need to have 3 protagonistic characters. It is okay to have someone play a selection of the chair and a fly and the background seagull noises. That's their contribution. And if that enhanced the action, then that was just as significant and beautiful as them being a third protagonist. So that's about player ego as much as it is about giving space to other people, right?
It's very much about player ego. It's also about maturity. A lot of it comes when you do it more and more and more. Same with the time. You might feel like a pause is 6 dog years the first time you do it. Once you're more comfortable and more relaxed, you're going to enjoy the pauses as well. With my students, I get them to watch 2 people sitting on the bench, and I literally tell them to do nothing. And then I get the audience of other students to raise their hand when they're bored. Everyone is so surprised about how long it takes an audience to get bored of watching 2 people do nothing. What you think is nothing is never nothing. There's always something. And player ego is a whole other topic. That either gets solved through self-knowledge and feedback, or it gets solved by saying bye-bye. Yeah. Unfortunately, the older I get, the less patience I have for big egos in improv.
Kelly, we talked about a lot: space, interplay, and character work, and time and growth. What are your words of wisdom in with that or out with that? If you could speak to the younger version of you, to your improv peers or people who have found this video because they've never tried improv before and they're just, gosh darn it, curious, what do you want them to know? What are your words of wisdom?
When I was a young improviser, I think it took me a total of 2 years to understand what embracing mistakes really was. I still felt a little thing in my stomach every time I messed up an exercise, even the stupid warm-up. It took a very long time for me to truly be okay with failure. And it was only when I had truly absorbed that I grew as an improviser and I evolved, because I was still playing to win. And I was playing to win because I'm a competitive person who grew up in a household where academic excellence was the most important thing. And so, of course, I was wired to not fail. So dare to fail would be the advice I would give my younger self, and anyone who, like me, understands intellectually that we need to embrace our mistakes, but maybe doesn't understand it in here yet. Yeah, dare to fail.
Kelly, if people are passing through Brussels and they want to find Improv Bubble, or they are in Belgium to obtain obviously chocolate, and then they think, wait a minute, this improv thing, or they want to have a coffee with you, watch you take a class, or just throw cash at you, your general direction.
Yeah, please, come on.
Okay.
You can go to improvbubble.com, so improvbubble, all one word.com. They can ping me on the Improbubble Facebook. They can also message me directly. Use any medium you like, and it would be lovely to have a coffee.
Perfect. Holly, thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful to speak with you. This was lovely.
Pleasure. Thank you for the lovely questions, and I hope to see you either in Hong Kong or Brussels.
Yes, please. This is Improving the World. I'm Lauren. Thank you. And there's more where that came from. Bye. So, did you love the video? If you did, please say kind and wonderful things in the comments down below. Share the video with your 50 best friends. Please subscribe and look for more Improving the World. Thanks.